Today, Perth investment property. What's going on? Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to our latest post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. And I have a Perth investor with me today. Hello.
Hi Martin, how's it going?
Very good. Thank you very much for spending time. So introduce yourself, tell the listeners a little bit about what you're up to and your perspective, particularly on the investment property market in Perth.
Sure, my name's Carl. I'm from Perth, born and bred in Perth. And I'm a property investor in Perth, and I'm not in the property market. I'm not a real estate agent, or my only exposure is investing in the housing market in Perth. So residential, townhouses and stuff like that.
Okay. So how big is your portfolio? How many properties have you got?
4.
Okay. All right. And how long have you been in the market?
About 5 years now.
Okay. So you'd have bought in at the time when the market was looking reasonably buoyant, but of course since 2015 it's pretty much gone sideways.
Yes, it was very much at the top. My scenario is a little bit different because I developed them myself.
Okay.
I'm not too exposed right now, so my personal position might be a little different to everyone else's in Perth.
Yeah, okay. So I guess there are two dimensions. The first is property prices, the other is rental streams. So what are rental streams doing over in Perth at the moment then?
Yeah, they've been continuously coming down over the last 3 years, I'd say. So example, a 3x2 that I have about 7 kilometres from the CBD, they were going for 600 to 550 per week, and now that's come down to 420 a week.
Wow.
So you've had a significant decrease in rental yields, I'd say 30%.
Okay. So that means that presumably a number of property investors will now be underwater from a cash flow perspective.
Yes, I do believe that's very tight. Maybe not as much as the East Coast, because I don't think the leverage was the same in Perth.
Okay.
So from my research, yeah, it's tight for a lot of people, but it's only getting tighter.
Okay. And are you seeing demand for investment property rising, or in terms of renters, are you seeing demand from renters rising or falling? How's that going at the moment?
There's definitely, before, during the boom, there was very, very tight. So renters had very slim pickings on what they had to choose now. Now when I open up a house for inspection, I'll have probably the same amount of people coming through, but now they've got a large choice of rental properties. So it can be hard to get a good tenant that way. You know?
Okay, right.
And
so there's
something I have noticed significantly in the last month is people coming through, and I ask for a rental history, and they have no rental history. They haven't rented for 20, and one case was 35 years this lady hasn't rented for. So I have no rental history for them to go by. So what their scenario is, they've had a house, they've owned houses, and now they've had to sell their houses. I don't know the personal circumstances, but you can have an educated guess on why they've had to sell.
Okay, so effectively people being forced perhaps to come back into the rental market, or indeed have made a choice to sell their property and move into rented accommodation on the assumption that property prices aren't going to go up in Perth, and in fact, with rentals coming down, it might be economically more sustainable to actually rent for a period.
Yeah, so it could be either one, that, yeah, they're thinking, oh, there's another leg down here and I need to get out, or, yeah, they've come into some strife, because businesses in Perth are struggling to some certain degree. It's not hard to go past restaurants now in Perth and see they're very, very empty, and you see a lot of building companies going under in Perth now. So the market is heading down and the whole economy is suffering.
Okay, that's very interesting, because of course some of the real estate guys over in the West have been basically saying, oh, it's fine, everything's looking as though it's going to be rising. You've got a rather different perspective.
Yeah, well, they're just blowing their own horn. So of course they're going to be. Yeah, of course they're going to be saying. They're not going to come out. Their own interest is to prop up the market. And I laugh every time I hear the real estate agents and industry in WA talk about, I was about to turn the corner. They've been saying that for 3 years now. So you cry wolf once, but now it's 3-4 times, and yeah, I think, yeah. They've said what they've said.
And in terms of your views with regard to investment property, you're still going to hang in there. You're still going to keep those properties running.
Yes. Well, thanks to people like Harry Dent, like you just had on your show, I foresaw the commodity crash, especially because that hurt Perth a lot. And I've de-risked my investments. I'm cash flow positive. But I do have friends and friends of friends who aren't in that scenario. They're well underwater, negative equity, and it's not uncommon to be at a barbecue or a party and talking to someone in Perth, and they'll let slip that they're underwater, or they've got negative equity, because house prices have come down so much in Perth that it's very, very significant.
Well, it's interesting because we run our household surveys, and that includes obviously Perth, and we see about more than half of all households who are investors underwater from a cash flow perspective. But now if we also run the capital values in terms of when they bought and now, we're also seeing again that same issue with effectively negative equity. So it looks to me as though the investment sector in Perth is not going to go and go anywhere positive for the next couple of years at least, probably.
Yeah. With rental yields lowering every month, that's only going to become more of an issue for investors in Perth.
Okay, I have one last question, and that is, what's the regulatory context for renting? Is it harder? Is there more paperwork compared with previously, or how are the government regulations running?
Nothing significant has happened for many years, so okay. It's easy. It's nothing has that issue hasn't even arose yet.
Okay, very interesting, because in some other states there have been quite significant changes. For example, in Victoria, you are now allowed to have small dogs and things in a rental property. Okay. So they've tried to sort of swing the balance a little bit towards those renting rather than those investing. But I'd heard the same, that in fact in Perth it's still pretty positive in terms of investment property.
If anything was going to happen, it was during the shortage and when the rental yields were so high and rent was expensive, they would have brought something in, but they might have missed the boat or just slept on it. But now all of it's in the renter's favour. So the tide has certainly changed.
Well, that's very interesting. And so thank you very much for spending some time with us and painting the picture of Perth. I know there'll be a lot of people on the channel who say, tell me about Perth. So this is great because you've been able to give us some first-hand evidence of what's going on. Appreciate your time, Carl. And perhaps we'll catch up again down the track and see how things develop.
Excellent. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you very much for your time. So there you have it. Some news from the front line in Perth. It looks as though it'll be a little bit difficult ahead. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching. See you next time.